Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dream Oracle for You. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your support so far, and I hope you'll stick around for the entire episode. In today's episode, I want to talk about how to remember your dreams. I'm going to talk about symbolism in dreams and potential meanings, and I'm going to give some examples of my own personal dreams. But before we go further into the episode, I'd like to just remind everyone of one of the goals of this podcast is to create a community where we can share and talk about dreams. And so I'd like to kick things off with, if you would like to share your dreams with me personally, you can reach me at dreamoracleforyou@gmail.com, and that is the number 4 and the letter U. Otherwise, you could leave a comment and get a discussion going on what you thought of the episode, ideas on symbols and how to remember your dreams, or anything that comes to mind about dreams. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you make it all the way to the end of this video. Or even if you don't make it to the end of the episode, please just give it a like and a subscribe, and that would be greatly appreciated. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to remember your dreams. And the key here is you have to get the information. Like when you first wake up and you have bits and pieces of your dream that's standing out in your mind, write down everything you can remember as soon as you wake up. Maybe this is keeping a notepad next to your bed so you can scribble down things as soon as you wake up. Or perhaps, I don't particularly like to have my phone in my room when I'm sleeping, but some people do, and there's notepad apps on your phone that you can also record, or even a voice recording. Sometimes you just need to say it out loud and then you'll remember it. But the key is to get everything down that you can remember within the first 5 minutes. 5 minutes after waking up, remnants of your dreams will just disappear. But what's magical about this is the more that this becomes routine and you start doing this on a daily basis, every time you wake up, and if you remember something from your dream and you start writing it down, it becomes easier to remember your dreams. They just stand out. I have dreams, since I've started doing this, I have dreams, especially dreams that actually mean something. If there was some underlying message that your guides are trying to communicate to you through your dream, if you write it down and it's an important dream, you will remember it. And if you don't remember it, what's cool is they send you another version of the dream. And so that's my big point I wanted to make is, I know it sounds simple, but writing down the dreams really does help. And another facet to this is, if you're trying to figure out what your dreams mean, sometimes you're not quite ready for the message. I know that seems a little counterintuitive, but I definitely have written down my dreams, and in the moment thought that perhaps it meant one thing. And then, a couple weeks later, maybe a month, whatever, I'll go back and I'll just want to reflect on that dream entry again and see if there was anything more. Maybe there was something I missed, as in when I was interpreting the dream. And more things will stand out to you. And this leads me to, I was going to leave all the examples to the end, but I think this is a good point to talk about this, and it was a good reminder, sort of related anyway, might be tangential. You'll have to bear with me, I sometimes go on tangents, as I think we all do. We're storytellers, that's how we communicate and share information. So, last night's dream, it was a lot of randomness, and I think I mentioned randomness in my introductory video of dreams. It was kind of random, but the one thing that really stood out to me, and I'll get into talking about this with symbolism, but the one thing that stood out to me was this rose bush garden. And it wasn't your typical rose bush garden where you just have, a nice, perhaps a big round circle of roses collected in a spot. This was developed kind of like you would do a vegetable garden, where you had rows in your garden. And in particular, there were 7 rows. And 7's usually an important number, especially when we're talking about spiritual or soul development. And there were 7 rows, and it was kind of cool because each row represented a different stage in the rose development, if you will, its growth. So row 1, there was like nothing. It was just the rose seeds. And then row 2, you had a little, just a couple little leaves coming up. And then I don't remember the exact order of the rows, but you can imagine that the rows progressed in growth from 1 to 7. And by the time you got to the 7th rose, or the 7th one, you've already seen the roses blooming in the middle stages. And then there was, I don't want to call it death, because we know that roses, when you plant them, they go through a growth cycle, and the roses, they die, the petals fall off. Eventually the leaves will fall off towards the fall. But then the next year, it grows again. And after some consideration of what this symbol can mean, it had nothing to do with roses. And that's a cool thing about dreams, is the symbols, they're symbols. They're ways to teach you a message, teach you a lesson, show you something. And often they have nothing to do with the actual symbol that they're showing you. And most importantly, because these messages come from your own personal guides, and we all have them, is they're personal to you. So this rose garden that I had in my dream might have meant something totally different if it had been sent by a different guide to a different person. But in my case, I knew that it meant something. And what it meant, it represented spiritual growth. And the 7 rows represented 7 years. And this typically is true for most people on earth, that you will go through stages in life, your soul journey, your development, in a cycle where, in the beginning stages, you just have the seed and you're just starting to blossom and grow. And then there's some sort of death happening, if you will. And that doesn't necessarily mean death of you personally. It means change. It means that you're shifting from, one stage in life to another. Maybe it's a new career. Maybe it's a new relationship. Maybe an old relationship has passed on. And, relationships, they come and go. People come and go in your life. But the ones that are meant to stay will stay. And then the ones who do go, perhaps it's sad that, the end of a relationship can be sad. But I want to remind you to reflect and see what lessons you learned from those relationships. Because that's what life is about. Life is all about learning. We are lifetime learners, and we are put on this planet to learn and grow in a soul sense. Our soul is meant to be nourished and to grow. And that was kind of what I took away from my dream this morning with the roses. And you perhaps could hear that crow just now in the background. I'm in one of my favorite places. Every morning I like to go for a walk, and sometimes I go to this park. I live in a kind of a city type area, so it's hard to connect to nature. And this little park is my one way of connecting to nature. The rose picture that will be in this episode is actually taken from the gardens, and I thought it was appropriate to have a rose picture to accompany my rose dream. Okay, so we're about 10 minutes in to the episode, and I'm perhaps a little more than halfway done. These episodes are going to be short. I know some podcasts can be quite long, and I know me personally, I tend to want to binge listen to them, and like I want to listen to them start to finish, and sometimes we just don't have time for that, you know? Maybe you have a 20-minute drive to go to work, and I'm hoping that these podcasts could be something you could listen to on your drive or your walk, maybe while you're doing dishes or folding laundry, whatever it may be. So I guess I kind of already touched on symbols and how they're personal to everyone, and different symbols may mean different things. And that leads me to another example of mine. I talked about sometimes symbols will reoccur, and they can reoccur for a couple of reasons. They can reoccur because you're going through different stages in your life and you need that symbol as a reminder to, you know, what stage you're at, if you will. But sometimes the symbols can come and they can change. And when they change, they also represent your growth. And one recurring dream for me has always been tornadoes. You know, tornadoes are these massive, you know, vaults of energy that represent a lot of change. And in particular for me, a tornado has often represented fear. Because, well, I spent some time, many years in Florida. Tornadoes are quite common there. And, you know, you always have warnings. And they can be quite destructive. You know, you see the destruction of these massive vaults of energy. And there's often a lot of life that is lost. There's homes destroyed. Everything you know is just completely gone if a tornado rips by. And so for me, tornadoes were always a representation of my fear. Like, I was genuinely afraid of tornadoes. But in terms of dream symbolism, these tornadoes also represented my own personal fear. Now I have to say, although I've been fascinated with dreams my entire life, and I've always known that there's some deeper meaning behind them. There's a message. Maybe it's your brain processing things of the day or whatnot. But I started to notice that sometimes my dreams had nothing to do with what had happened the previous day. And so that led me to question. And in recent years, I really started to pay attention to my dreams. And when I've started to pay attention to them, I really started to connect the dots, if you will. Start getting bits and pieces of information and being able to assemble them in a complete picture. With tornadoes, I've had all kinds of tornado dreams. Ones where I'm in my grandmother's house and I see a tornado off in the distance and I'm like panicking, trying to get ready because this tornado is coming. And of course, often end up hiding somewhere in my dream and I wake up before the tornado hits. And I definitely have struggled with fear in my life. I think we all have things that we're afraid of, and fear is a you know, it's a motivator, but not necessarily a motivator from a place of love. When there's fear, there isn't really love. And to really grow as an individual, you need to come from a place of love and to be able to overcome your fears. Fears represent challenges. They don't necessarily represent, you know, something destructive. And I decided very recently that I didn't want to live in fear anymore. Fear of the unknown, worrying about what's going to happen next, what's going to come, you know, oh, what if this doesn't happen, what if that doesn't happen, and fear and worry kind of go hand in hand. And recently, my tornado dreams shifted from being afraid of them in my dream, you know, and waking up before the impact, to instead being like, okay, I'm ready. And the most recent dream I had with a tornado, I just let the tornado wash over. It was very interesting. I mean, obviously in real life, tornado washing over your house probably is going to be destructive. But again, this is a symbol. And for me, it represented that I'm like, okay, I'm ready to face my fear. I'm ready to take on whatever I need to take on. And I think that's all I really have to say today about dreams and symbols. So I'd like to remind you to please write down your dreams. If you want to start remembering them, decoding messages, you need to remember them. And in the beginning, this might get frustrating. I know I had a couple of friends who I started talking to them about dreams, and they spent some time in my place, and every morning was like, oh, well, what did you dream about? And they wouldn't be able to answer. They just like, oh, I don't remember. And after a couple of days of this, they would start to remember bits and pieces. So you train your brain to remember your dreams, but you have to be consistent. And most importantly, I think it's good to write them down. And then remember that the messages that are trying to come through in your dreams, the symbols that are used, might have nothing to do with the symbols that you see. You know, for me, the rose garden, when I initially woke up, actually, I thought, oh, I should do something like that with my garden. Make a series of rows and see the growth progress. That'd be so cool. Yeah, no, I missed the point. That was, initially, that was not the message to receive. It meant something deeper. So symbols are personal, and they might not represent what you think. It takes some time to reflect on them and see where the connection bit is. And then I gave a couple examples of rose gardens and tornadoes and the symbolism for my own personal dreams. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to continue with these episodes and to build this community of sharing dreams. I don't think we talk about these things enough, and I think that dreams do have power behind them to help us grow and learn. And with that, I'd like to just again remind you to like and subscribe, leave a comment. You can reach out to me. The email is at the beginning of the show, and I think it might be in one of the descriptions or about or whatnot. And if there's something you'd like to hear me talk about regarding dreams, please let me know. Once again, thank you all for listening. Sending you lots of love and happiness today as you grow on your journeys. And I look forward to hearing to you. See you next time.